Good evening, everyone. Good to be here, as Gary said. Kurt Czarnowski, currently the principal in Czarnowski Consulting. For those 102 of you in the room not intimately familiar with us, proud to say we're an international consulting firm. And it's purest of coincidences that our world headquarters are located in the basement of my house in Norfolk, Massachusetts. Don't worry, it's Czarnowski Consulting. I like to say we're able to provide expert answers to your Social Security questions. And why can I say that simple? As Gary referenced, I used to work for Social Security. Worked for them for 34 years. Last 20 years of my career, I was the communications director here in New England, which meant I spent my time out talking to folks about the program. And in my retirement, I've continued to do that because I enjoy it, but I also think there's a real need. Because believe it or not, the Social Security program is now a little over 81 years old. And each and every month, the Social Security Administration pays about $70 billion in benefits to just about 60 million people. And on top of that, there's another 170 million folks, like most of you in this room, are out there working and paying into the program. So what I saw during my time with the agency, and now that I'm on my own, is that despite the age of the program, despite the size of the program, despite the economic impact that Social Security has in this country today, unfortunately, the myths and misunderstandings that are out there about what it is, as well as what it isn't, are frankly staggering. Nobody knows nothing about Social Security, as best I can tell. So I was really excited to accept Gary's invitation to spend the next 7 or 8 hours with you. No, don't worry, we're serving breakfast too. No. Spend a little time talking about some of the things I think it's important for you to know about what the program is, perhaps equally importantly what it isn't. Let's dispel some of those myths and misunderstandings. And why is it acutely important to do that these days? Simple, 2 words. Baby boomers. There's 75 million of us. Baby boomers storming towards retirement, starting to wake up just now to the fact the retirement world staring us in the face. It's different than the retirement world that faced our parents and our grandparents. We're just now starting to wake up to the fact that the Social Security program, as a guaranteed stream of lifetime income, may well be a bigger part of our retirement income than we had anticipated. And we're also recognizing maybe we don't know as much about the program as we should. So in our time together tonight, again, I want to give you some good, solid information to help you better understand what the program is, realize what it isn't, dispel some of those myths and misunderstandings, and set you on that way to that safe, secure, comfortable retirement everybody hopes to enjoy. Most important slide in the deck happens to be this one. But the most important slide in the deck happens to be this one. You walk out of here with nothing but this etched in your brain, you had a good evening. Key message to me, and you hear me repeat it over and over again, is you need to recognize that when the program was created a little over 81 years ago, it was put in place to provide you with a base or foundation of income protection that you can definitely count on being there. But it's a base of income protection that you must take steps to supplement, because it was never intended to be your only source of income in retirement. But unfortunately these days, about 23% of retiree couple households, the Social Security money that comes into those folks each month is virtually the only income they have. A terrible situation. So how do you avoid that happening to you? Simple, by planning for retirement. And you'd be commended, taking time out of your busy schedule, spend a little time tonight planning for retirement, learning about Social Security. But for the longest time, the Social Security Administration tried to play an active role in helping you plan for your retirement, because as you recall, in the past, on an annual basis, you used to get this paper document mailed to you, the Social Security statement, come out on an annual basis 3 months before your birthday, giving you retirement planning information, benefit estimates at 3 ages, 62, your full retirement age of 70. Also provide a nice year-by-year breakout. What Social Security had recorded as your work and earnings under the program. And it's important to take a look at that, review it, because we'll see in a minute what you eventually collect each month from Social Security is directly related to what your work and earnings have been. So if a mistake had occurred in crediting you some earnings, it was important to catch it, correct it, because if you didn't, it would have a direct impact on what you eventually collected. But you may have noticed, hey, I haven't got one of those every year lately. What's the deal? Well, Social Security has changed the way they distribute Social Security statements, and they no longer mail a paper document out to everyone on an annual basis. So I want to bring you up to date on what their current plans are. First and foremost, they're no longer mailing paper statements to everyone annually, but what they've done is put in place a system whereby if you go to www.socialsecurity.gov/myaccount, take about 10 or 15 minutes or so to set up your own Social Security account. One of the byproducts of having that account in place is then you'll then be able to download a Social Security statement for yourself anytime you want. You're going to come in, do some retirement planning. Having that current information in hand is going to make that a better process. So I'd encourage you, if you haven't yet set up your Social Security account, do that. Again, it takes you about 10 or 15 minutes or so online. Be able to download a Social Security statement, and then down the road, when you start to collect benefits, having that account in place will enable you to do a whole bunch of other things yourself, like change your address, change direct deposit, and other things like that. So take advantage of that online service. But Social Security has also said they've decided to resume mailing paper statements out, but on a limited basis. So how do they define limited basis? Simple. What they say these days is, you haven't set up an account yet, and you're under the age of 60, they are going to mail you a paper statement, but only once every 5 years, at age 25, 30, 35, 40, whatever. But they've also said, haven't set up an account yet, you're 60 years of age or older, they are going to mail you a paper statement on an annual basis, same old schedule, about 3 months before your birthday, same as before. But my view is, I think it makes sense, even if you're 60 years of age or older, to take the time to set up your Social Security account, because then you are going to come in, do some retirement planning. You'll download that current Social Security statement, have current information in hand when you do it. So take advantage of that Social Security account, set that up for yourself. But here's the thing about the statement, as I mentioned, gives you benefit estimates only at 3 ages. 62, your full retirement age of 70. And in preparing the estimate, because Social Security has no idea what your future work plans are, they base the calculation in the statement on an assumption that you're going to keep working, making the same amount of money you've made for the past couple of years. We know as well as I do in planning for retirement. Maybe I'll be interested in collecting benefits at an age other than just 62, your full retirement age of 70. May also be interested in gauging the impact on certain work changes on your Social Security benefit. So what happens if you go into work on Friday and then turn right around, walk right out, and never go back? Or perhaps you go part-time in 2 years, or maybe even take a second job in 3 years. So I want to remind you of a second retirement planning tool that's available to you, Social Security's online retirement estimator, accessible at www.socialsecurity.gov/estimator. Beauty of the estimator is you work with your own Social Security earnings record without the need to go back and key in all of your prior year earnings like you have to do with certain other software products that are out there. But now you can develop what-if scenarios to your heart's content. You want to find out how much you'd get each month from Social Security if you were to start collecting at 62 and a half, 64 and 6 months, 68 and 8 months, whatever age you're interested in. And or Online Estimator allows you to figure out what would happen to your Social Security benefit down the road if indeed you did quit work this Friday and never came back, or if indeed you went part-time in a year, or took a second job in 3 years. So that online retirement estimator designed to help you, in concert with the information in the Social Security statement, better plan for retirement. Help you understand. Realize the Social Security program provides you that base, that foundation of income protection at whatever age you start to collect, but hopefully you realize never intended to be your only source of income in retirement. You take those steps to supplement your Social Security, and the sooner you start to take those steps, more likely you are to have that comfortable retirement. So message one for me tonight, plan for retirement. Take advantage of the tools that are available to you, and you'll have more likely a successful retirement. Now, as I talk to folks around the country these days, biggest question most baby boomers have to ask is, well, when should I take my money? So most of them are wondering about. So understand this, under the program, you've got choices and you've got options. What I'm going to try to do tonight is make sure you understand what those choices and options are. The way I characterize it, I want to help you understand what you can do under the program. But ultimately deciding what you should do, that's not for me to say. That's ultimately your choice, your decision. You're the ones who've worked and paid into the program. I'm in no position to tell you what you should do. But my view is, unless and until you fully understand what you can do, you're in no position to decide what you should do. So let's make sure you understand your choices and options. As we go through the exercise tonight, I'd like to say make sure you know what Social Security considers your full retirement age. When the program started back in 1935, Congress set full retirement age as the month you turned age 65. Full retirement age 65 for everybody without exception. But by 1983, recognizing that life expectancy was increasing, Congress has increased Social Security full retirement age for anyone born 1938 or later. Now the increase has been phased in over time. We're now at the point where for a big chunk of us baby boomers, any of us born between 1943 and 1954, Social Security full retirement age for us, it's the month we turn age 66. But it's important to note that under current law, it continues to increase beyond that. tops out right now, anyone born 1960 or later has a Social Security full retirement age is the month you turn age 67. Now, full retirement is not your only choice, not your only option, but make sure you know what your full retirement age is based on your year of birth, because as we go through the discussion tonight, you'll see a lot of features of the program flow from at least having reached your full retirement age. So make sure you know what that is. But in terms of collecting benefits, you have to start taking your money the month you reach your full retirement age. That means one thing and one thing only. It means you'll collect 100% of the amount your work and earnings have entitled you to receive. And we'll talk in a second how that all gets calculated. But you start at full retirement age, you get 100% of what your benefit is. But among the options you have are to start taking your money before you've reached full retirement age, if that makes sense for you, and you can actually start to collect as early as age 62 under the rules these days. But here's the thing. Social Security, as the name implies, is a social insurance program. Congress has built certain social goals into it, and one of those is a hope that everyone ends up with roughly the same amount of lifetime benefits, regardless of when you start to collect them. And so under the rules of the program, if you opt to start taking your money before you've reached your full retirement age, well, in theory, then you'll now be collecting for a longer period of time, and so your monthly payment amount gets reduced. For each month prior to your full retirement age that you opt to collect, your benefit is permanently reduced by roughly 0.5%. 0.5% per month reduction for each month prior to full retirement age that you opt to collect. And oh yeah, by the way, it's a permanent reduction. Another one of those myths that are out there. Too many folks mistakenly think, yeah, I know I'll start early, I'll get less, but as soon as I hit my full retirement age, my payment will zoom up. No, permanent reduction. The theory being you're starting sooner. Based on average life expectancy, you can be expected to collect for a longer period of time, so you get less on an individual monthly basis. By the way, you don't have to start right on your birthday. Don't have to start the first of the calendar year. Whatever point makes the most sense for you, but understand this. You start to take your money before you've reached your full retirement age, your payment is permanently reduced by roughly 0.5% for each month that you opt to collect. As I mentioned, you start right at full retirement age, that's when you get 100%. But among the options you have are to wait beyond full retirement age if that makes sense for you. And with that social insurance idea in place, if you think about it, now if you opt to defer, in theory then you'll be collecting for a shorter period of time. So by all rights, your monthly benefit amount ought to be increased because you waited, right? And it is. These are called delayed retirement credits. And for each month past your full retirement age that you opt not to take your money, your payment is permanently increased by 0.2%. Now, 0.2% per month increase, that translates into an 8% per year increase, but you don't need to not collect for a full year. For each month you defer, your benefit goes up by 0.2%. But here's the key thing. These delayed retirement credits, as they're called, only accrue until the age of 70. For each month from your full retirement age up until age 70 that you defer, your benefit is permanently increased by 0.2% per month, 8% per year. But no additional increase past age 70 if you opt to defer. And that's an important point. You never have to take your Social Security benefits. It's not like there's a required minimum distribution or anything like that. In fact, if more of you in this room would cowboy up and not take your money, the system might not be faced with some of the financial difficulties. That's going nowhere, is it? Yeah, all right. Let me give you an example, illustrate what I'm talking about. We get somebody at the full retirement age of 66, and at her full retirement age of 66, let's say she gets $1,000 a month. What are her choices? What are her options? We'll oversimplify the example. We won't build in COLAs. But say she wants to start right at age 62, the earliest point. The way the reduction factor works out, she'll receive 75% of the amount she'd receive if she waited all the way until full retirement age. In other words, she starts at age 62, doesn't get $1,000 a month. She gets $750 a month and continuing. Yeah, it's getting $250 less, but the trade-off obviously starts to receive that lower amount sooner and collects it for a longer period of time. Now say she wants to wait a little bit though, start at age 63. With that year of waiting, her benefit will be higher. At age 63, her payment amount would be $800 a month and continuing. She waits all the way until her full retirement age of 66. That's when she gets the full $1,000 a month that her work and earnings have entitled her to. But say she wants to wait a little bit beyond that. Wants to wait 1 year. Start at age 67. That 1 year's worth of deferral means their payment's going to be 8% higher starting at age 67, meaning her monthly benefit's $1,080 per month and continuing. She opts to wait all the way until age 70, accrues the maximum of 4 years worth of delayed retirement credits, an 8% increase for each of those 4 years. And by the way, it's simple interest, not compounded. But it means her payment amount starting at age 70 is 32% higher than the amount she would have received at age 66. In other words, her ongoing payment, $1,320 per month and continuing. Well, let's say she wants to wait and start at age 72. Still going to be that $1,320, right? Because there are no additional delayed retirement credits past age 70. Bottom line, as I said right at the beginning, it's your choice, your decision. What are the factors you ought to be thinking about, though? Well, you know as well as I do, your health, obviously, for one, right? Longevity, for a second factor. I always like to ask folks, do you come from a family of long livers? Or do you come from a family of short pancreases? Bum. It's a line out of the movie Goodbye Columbus from 40-something years ago. I can't take credit for it as much as I might like. Do you need the money? You're going to keep working. All those factors come into play. But understand this, the whole idea always used to be that based on average life expectancy, it really shouldn't matter. But you know what? Life expectancy is increasing. Social Security numbers say a 65-year-old man today on average is going to live to age 84, a 65-year-old woman on average age 86. But even more telling, Social Security numbers say of today's 65-year-olds, 1 in 3 expected to live to age 90. 1 in 7 to age 95. We baby boomers need to focus on the fact that retirement for us could be a period of 20, 25, or maybe even 30 years or more in length. And my personal view tends to be most of us baby boomers, as we head out the door into retirement, we don't have that traditional pension, that defined benefit pension. If we have pension protection at all, most of us have that defined contribution type. 401k, 403b, 457. We're walking out the door not with a guaranteed stream of lifetime income that we can't outlive. No, we're walking out the door with a pile of money. We're starting to wake up to the fact that the burden has been shifted onto us to make that pile of money last through what could be an extended period of time in retirement. So my view tends to be that later in retirement, that pile of money will likely have diminished somewhat. Later in retirement, healthcare costs likely be higher. So you may have a greater need for a higher monthly income later in your retirement than when you make that initial transition. And again, one way you can help meet that that demand is by delaying the start of your Social Security payments. But again, it's your choice, your decision. I want to make sure you understand the basic concept, which is you start sooner, you get less on a monthly basis. You wait longer before you start, you get a higher monthly payment. But when Congress set that reduction rate and increase rate so many years ago based on average life expectancy at the time, it wasn't supposed to matter. But now, because life expectancy is increasing, I tend to think that good things come to those who wait. Good things come to those who wait. But again, not for me to say. Your choice, your decision. Whatever you want to do is fine with me, as long as you understand that basic concept. Now, second big area I get questions about, well, it's how do they figure out how much I'm getting anyway? Understand this, under the rules of the program, as I said earlier, there is a relationship between your work and your earnings and what you eventually collect each month from Social Security. We'll see in a second, it's not a perfect correlation. But in calculating benefits, Social Security uses a formula that Congress has written right into the law. Formula has a number of different steps in it. First step is that Social Security does go back and adjust all of your prior year earnings for inflation, bring them up to what they are in today's dollars. But then once they've done that, they calculate your benefit by averaging your highest, wait for it, 35 years of work under the system. Another one of those myths or misunderstandings. Too many folks out there mistakenly think it's based on your high 3 or your last 5. Like some other pension systems that are out there. Social Security benefits are calculated by averaging your highest 35 years of work under the system, a lifetime of earnings. So what happens if you don't have 35 years where you've actually paid into the Social Security program, taken time out of the workforce to raise kids, care for aging parents, perhaps work for a while in a job where you're paying into Social Security? Unfortunately, no provision for that. Still going to be your highest 35 years that get averaged. And if you don't happen to have 35 years of something, zeros get thrown in there, lowers your average monthly wage, lowers your monthly benefit. But here's another reminder about Social Security being a social insurance program. And when Congress put that formula in place, recognize that people in lower paying jobs are less likely to have a pension, less likely to be able to save during their working years for retirement because they need the money for food, clothing, and shelter. So the system does try and help people in lower paying jobs by providing a monthly payment amount that's intended to replace a higher percentage of their pre-retirement income, somewhere in the neighborhood of 55%. Now, for somebody who's been a higher earner throughout his or her working years, by all means, they get more than that low-wage earner does. But if you look what the payment represents, it's actually designed to replace a smaller percentage, somewhere in the neighborhood of 34% of pre-retirement income. And for the average worker these days, the benefit's only intended to replace around 41% of that person's pre-retirement income. In no case, high earner, low earner, or average earner, does it replace 100% of what your pre-retirement income is. Which leads us back to that first slide I showed you. It's important to recognize programs designed to provide you that base, that foundation of income protection, but it was never intended to be your only source of income in retirement. You've got to find ways to supplement it. And the sooner you take those steps, the more likely you are to have that comfortable retirement. Two numbers for you to think about tonight. 2016, the average Social Security retirement benefit being paid, $1,341 a month. $1,341 average Social Security retirement benefit. Then I often get asked, well, is there a maximum payment that they make? Well, qualify it by saying in 2016, for somebody who is at full retirement age of 66 this year, and who, for each of the past 35 years, has had earnings at or above whatever the taxable maximum has been for each one of those years, because that's an important point. 2016, you could make $500,000, but you're only going to pay this year Social Security tax on the first $118,500 that you make. Each year, there's a maximum level of earnings upon which Social Security tax is imposed. And in calculating your benefit, Social Security only averages in those earnings that had been subject to Social Security tax. So, 2016, somebody at full retirement age of 66 this year, who for each of the past 35 years has had earnings at or above whatever the taxable maximum has been for each one of those 35 years, he or she receives, drum roll please, $2,639 a month. $2,639 maximum at full retirement age this year, $1,341 average. It's a base. The foundation. But you got to work with these guys to find ways you can supplement it if you're going to have that comfortable retirement. Incidentally, if I had been given the full 8 hours I had originally been promised, we'd be going through this in excruciatingly painful detail. 8, 9, 10 decimal points. I know any engineers in the audience are going, ooh, that's great. But if you want to learn more about benefit calculations and computations, I'd like to direct you to the Social Security Administration website, www.socialsecurity.gov/ and then in all capital letters OACT, OACT, which is an abbreviation for the Social Security Administration's Office of the Actuary. Everybody knows what an actuary is, right? Actuary is somebody who doesn't have enough personality to be an accountant. Oh, yeah, da, 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 da. All right, so we talked about the when you can collect. We talked about how benefits are figured. I want to spend a couple of seconds talking about working in retirement. Another area a lot of misconceptions about. Understand this, under the rules of the program, if you are under your full retirement age, looking to collect benefits, but still hoping to work, you need to understand that you're limited and how much you can earn before it begins to impact your ability to collect. 2016, you're allowed to make up to $15,720 without any loss of benefits whatsoever. Now, you make above $15,720, doesn't mean you can't collect at all, but Social Security then starts to hold back $1 in benefits for each $2 that you're above the threshold. So what counts towards that $15,720? Two things only: wages or net income from self-employment. In other words, earned income only. That whole wide world of unearned income, like a VA benefit, General Motors pension, 401k distributions, bank interest, dividends, none of that counts towards that $15,720 threshold. Earned income only. But the good news is, from the month you reach your full retirement age on, this earnings limitation goes away. And from the month you hit full retirement age on, you can work and earn as much as you'd like and collect full Social Security benefits at the same time. Now, I often get asked the question, I'm retired, but I'm thinking about going back to work. I'm not going to have to pay Social Security tax on my earnings, am I? If you're a job covered by Social Security, you will absolutely pay Social Security tax on those earnings. Good news for the folks at Social Security, because these days they could use the money. But there's potentially good news for you. As I mentioned before, your benefit is always calculated by averaging your highest 35 years of work under the system. And the good news is it's your highest 35 years of work regardless of when they occur. It isn't necessarily your first 35, isn't necessarily your last 35, isn't even necessarily 35 consecutive years. So even if you consider yourself retired, you go back to work, you pay into the Social Security system, and the earnings that you have are higher than the lowest of the 35 years the Social Security had been using. Well, the good news for you is end of the year, you file your tax return, Social Security does a match, they then recompute your benefit. They drop out that lowest year, plug back in that higher year, results in a benefit increase for you going forward. And this ability to increase your payment through additional work and earnings, it continues forever. Delayed retirement credits, yeah, they stop at age 70. No additional bump past age 70 by not collecting. But no matter how old you are, if you're working, paying into the system, and your earnings are higher than the lowest of your 35 years that Social Security had been using, the great news for you is each year your benefit is recomputed upward. And the other bit of good news is full retirement age on, work never hurts. Been a high-priced executive for most of your working years. But in retirement, take a part-time job here at Pleasant Valley as a starter or a ranger. Or perhaps you drive the beer cat around, you know? End of the year, you make a couple $1,000. Well, that couple $1,000 is probably going to be lower than the lowest of your 35 years of earnings. So what happens to your benefit going forward? Nothing. Stays the same. It's always your highest 35 years of work that are averaged to calculate the amount of your benefit. So I said a while ago, I think good things come to those who wait. I think good things can come to those who work as well. Because from full retirement age on, work never hurts. You always have the possibility of increasing your payment. Among the handouts I have for you over here, a nice little trifold brochure titled How Work Affects Your Benefits. Talks about this in a little more detail. All right, what I want to do is spend a little time talking about spousal benefits, survivor benefits, divorce spousal benefits, then segue into a discussion of changes that have occurred in the Social Security claiming strategies that were all the rage for about a decade or so. Claiming strategies were changed about a year ago by passage of the Bipartisan Budget Bill of 2015, but the strategies all were ways couples could optimize or maximize their lifetime benefits. So to understand the changes to the strategeries, as I sometimes call them, you have to understand how the spousal, survivor, and divorce spousal benefit program operates. So we'll touch on that and then go into a discussion of the strategies. Spousal benefits under Social Security. Been around for a long time, been around 60 or 70 years or so. Put in place basically by Congress to support the model of the American family of the 1950s and the 1960s. So whenever I go around and talk about spousal benefits and survivor benefits, I illustrate it by referring to what, in my estimation, was the prototypical American family of the 1950s and the 1960s. It was the Cleaver family from the TV show Leave It to Beaver. In the Cleaver household, you had Ward and June, but Ward Cleaver was the only one who worked. He was the breadwinner. Every morning, Ward Cleaver came downstairs. He was impeccably dressed. He left the home, briefcase in hand. Now, we don't really know where he went or what he did, right? But he worked. June Cleaver, prototypical American housewife of the 50s and 60s. Well, she came downstairs each morning equally impeccably dressed. She had pearls and high heels on at 8 in the morning, for God's sakes. But she never left the home. Her job, to have brownies and milk available for Wally and the Beeve. The end of a hard day of school, right? Well, Social Security supports the Cleaver family model in its spousal benefit program in the following way. Ward Cleaver, breadwinner. He'll get a benefit based on whatever that mysterious work was. So let's say he gets $1,000 a month at his full retirement age. June Cleaver, Ward's spouse, at her full retirement age, she's eligible to collect a monthly amount equal to 50% of Ward's full retirement age amount, or in our example, $500 a month. That'll be paid to her in addition to the $1,000 that's paid to Ward, and it'll be paid to her even though she may not have worked a day outside the home in her life. Now, for June to collect that spousal benefit, few conditions have to be met. First, Ward Cleaver needs to be collecting benefits. All right, she can't get that spousal payment unless he's collecting. Second, for her to be able to collect, she has to be at least age 62. Earliest age a spousal payment can be made, no different than on the retirement program. And if she's at her full retirement age when she applies, that's when she get the full 50%. If she's younger than that, her payment too is reduced. In theory, she's collecting for a longer period of time, and it works out she starts right at age 62 she gets 35% of his full retirement age amount. That's the third key point. June's spousal payment isn't necessarily half of what Ward's actually collecting. It's based on 50% of his full retirement age amount. What do I mean? Simple. Ward, full retirement age amount, $1,000. But say he waits until age 70 before he starts to collect, so he's actually receiving $1,320 a month. At her full retirement age, June is still only going to get a spousal benefit equal to $500. 50% of his full retirement age amount, so in this instance, she gets less than half of what he's actually receiving. But by the same token, Ward, full retirement age amount, $1,000, but he starts at age 62, so he's getting $750. If June's at her full retirement age, she's still going to get $500 a month. In this case, more than half of what he's collecting. So it's based on 50% of the full retirement age amount, not necessarily 50% of what the individual breadwinner happens to be collecting. But that's the 50s and 60s. Let's flash forward, 70s, 80s, and beyond. Because now, in all likelihood, June Cleaver will have worked outside the home, right? Will have paid into the Social Security program. I always like to envision June Cleaver selling beer at Fenway Park. Got the pearls on, asking for ID, things like that. So let's say she's earned a benefit on her own of $800 a month. They head to Social Security together. Ward gets his $1,000. June gets her $800. Social Security's about to say goodbye and good luck, and June goes, hey, can't fool me. Where's that $500 spousal benefit I've heard so much about? At that point, Social Security goes, sorry, June. Under the rules of the program, as Ward's spouse, you can collect that 50% of his full retirement age amount or your own, one or the other, whichever one is higher, but you don't get both at once. Because her own benefit in our example of $800 exceeds 50% of its full retirement age amount, that's what she collects. Now, say she hadn't sold that much beer, though. So her own benefit was only $250. Well, the good news is, as a spouse, she'd be eligible to receive an additional $250, moving her from her own $250 full retirement age amount up to that 50% of his. But spousal benefits, 50% of the higher earner's full retirement age amount or the individual's own, one or the other, whichever one is higher, but you don't get both at once. Incidentally, the program's completely gender neutral. What do we mean by that? Simple. Say the Cleavers had been ahead of their day back in the 50s and Ward was the stay-at-home dad and June was the primary breadwinner. Then everything I talked about would be equally true, that Ward could collect 50% of June's full retirement age amount or his own. One or the other, not both at once. Spousal benefits. But here's some good news for June Cleaver. That's if Ward dies. Well, that's not good news for Ward by any stretch of the imagination. Let me make that perfectly clear. But now we're talking about survivor benefits, widows and widowers. And here the basic rate for June now is not going to be 50% of his full retirement age amount. It's going to be 100% of the amount he was collecting at the time he passed away. Oh yeah, or her own, one or the other, not both at once. So for example, June's getting $800, Ward's getting his $1,000. Ward dies. June's benefit as a widow now increases by $200 a month, moving from the $800 she'd been collecting on her own up to that $1,000 level that he had been receiving. That's the good news, right? Bad news, as I said, one or the other, not both at once. So if you think about it, while he was alive, they were getting each month $1,800 in Social Security payments. His $1,000, her $8,000. He passes away while her individual benefit goes up. It's as if her own prior payment goes away. Just something you need to plan for. But the other point I want to make about survivor benefits is this. Ward, full retirement age amount $1,000, but say he waits till age 70 before he starts to collect, so at the time he passes away, he's receiving $1,320 a month. Well, the better news for June is that her widow's payment increases, $800 past $1,000, all the way up to that $1,320 that he had been collecting. So keep this in mind in deciding when to start to draw your own retirement benefit. Remember that by opting to wait, not only is your own payment going to be higher when you start to collect it, but it also means that any survivor payment that could be made upon your passing is going to be higher as well. And by starting sooner, your own benefit's lower than it would be if you waited, as will any survivor payment. Another instance of why I tend to think good things come to those who wait. Not only is your own payment higher, but any survivor benefit that could be made upon your passing is going to be higher as well. Again, not the only reason to consider, but something to think about. A couple other points about widows and widowers. Survivors can begin to collect as early as age 60, a little earlier than on the retirement or spousal program. But same concept holds. You have to take that money before you've reached your full retirement age. You get less. When you start right at age 60, the earliest point, you get 71.5% of the amount you'd receive if you waited all the way until full retirement age before starting to collect that survivor benefit. But the third bullet is the key one. As I mentioned, you collect on one account to the other at a time. You don't collect on both at once, but it's important to remind folks that it is possible to sequence the collection of survivor benefits. It's possible for June Cleaver, a widow at age 60, begin to receive a reduced widow's payment based on Ward's work and earnings, and then at her full retirement age, switch over and file for and receive her own full unreduced retirement benefit. The fact she'd been collecting reduced survivor benefits doesn't prevent her from getting a full unreduced retirement benefit. And the reverse would be true. She could start to collect her own reduced retirement benefit at 62 and then at her full retirement age, switch over, collect a full unreduced survivor benefit. But again, you collect on one account or the other at a time. You don't collect both payments at once. But it's possible to take a reduced amount on one account, at a later date switch over and collect a full unreduced amount on the other. Survivor benefits. I apologize, I'd really skipped over a tragedy that had befallen the Cleaver family. That after many happy years of marriage, Ward ran off with his 24-year-old secretary. June divorced him. So the question is, as a divorced spouse, can June collect based on Ward's work and earnings? The answer is potentially if a few conditions have been met. What are those conditions? First, marriage needs to have lasted 10 years prior to the divorce. Check. Second, for June to be able to collect based on Ward's work record, she cannot be married. She cannot be married. Ward, the cad, he could have married that young hussy without impacting her ability to collect on him, but she cannot be married. Check. Third, she has to be at least age 62. Earliest age a divorced spouse can collect, no different than regular spousal benefits. But there is one advantage that accrues in cases of divorce. As I mentioned, if the marriage were intact, she couldn't collect anything based on Ward's work record until he had actually started to collect. But what the law says in cases of divorce, as long as they're both over the age of 62 and the divorce was finalized at least 2 years ago, she can begin to draw benefits based on his work record even if he has not yet applied for benefits. They both have to be over the age of 62, divorce finalized 2 years ago. She can start to draw benefits based on his work record even if he has not yet started to collect. So with those conditions being met, what's she entitled to? Simple. As if the marriage was still intact. She could collect 50% of his full retirement age amount or her own. One or the other, whichever one is higher, but not both at once. By the way, the law sets it up so that divorced spouses are treated absolutely, totally, completely independently of anyone else who might be collecting on the record. So you get a situation like a Mickey Rooney or Elizabeth Taylor who had 8 or 9 or 10 marriages or whatever. Any of those that may have lasted over 10 years, each one of those exes potentially eligible to collect without impacting anyone else on the record. All right, so we talked about spousal benefits, survivor benefits, divorce spousal benefits. I want to bring you up to date on the changes that have occurred in the Social Security claiming strategies. I mentioned the changes occurred with the passage of the bipartisan budget bill of 2015. Made significant changes to 2 big strategies that couples had taken advantage of. The first was called file and suspend. The file and suspend strategy was basically Ward and June, classic situation. June had never worked. Ward, though, he wants to wait till age 70 before collecting, but he's wondering, is there something he can do to get some money for June before he starts to collect at age 70? And under this old file and suspend strategy, there certainly was. And the law said if Ward had waited until his full retirement age, he had the option at that point of applying for benefits and then asking to have his payments suspended. If he asked to have his payments suspended, he wouldn't receive anything himself, but because he wasn't receiving anything, he'd be accruing delayed retirement credits, growing his benefit 2/3% per month, 8% per year. But under the old law, even if Ward had asked to have his payments suspended and wasn't collecting anything himself, Social Security would be able to pay a spousal benefit to June. Good deal. He could defer and she could receive something at the same time he was deferring. The new law basically has done away with that. Under the new rules, if you hadn't filed and suspended by this past April 29th, You can still file and suspend if you'd like to, but under the new rules, if you ask to have your payments suspended, Social Security is also now required to also suspend the benefits to anyone and everyone else who might be collecting on your record. So that old situation where Ward could suspend and June could still be paid, that's what's being changed. Now, if Ward asks to have his payments suspended, June's benefits are suspended as well. And so with that change in the law, there really is no advantage to filing and suspending anymore. And I think that was the intention of Congress. But the other change pertained to something called claim some now, claim more later. You may have read about this, wondered what's it all about. Illustrated again with Ward and June. But now it's a situation where both Ward and June had worked. June, full retirement age amount $800, Ward, full retirement age amount $1,000. June, though, has decided to collect. All right, she's decided to collect her retirement benefits. But Ward's still sitting there wondering, is there something I can do to get me some money, though, while I wait? And under this claim some now, claim more later strategy, there certainly was. That if Ward waited until his full retirement age, June's collecting, if he waited till full retirement age, at that point had the option of, in essence, picking and choosing. He could go to Social Security at full retirement age, and he had the option of taking just a spousal benefit without having to take his own first. By doing that, by not taking his own, he'd be accruing delayed retirement credits, growing his benefit 2/3% per month, 8% per year. But by taking a spousal benefit, he'd immediately be paid a monthly amount equal to 50% of June's full retirement age amount, or in our example, $400 a month. That would be paid to him at the same time he was deferring collection of his own. Good deal. The key thing was he had to be at full retirement age. Because if you went to Social Security prior to reaching your full retirement age, you didn't have the option of picking and choosing, if you will. Under the rules, if you were under full retirement age, you went to Social Security, you were deemed to be applying for both your own retirement benefit and a spousal benefit at the same time. And Social Security would pay you on one or the other, whichever one were higher. You didn't have the option of picking and choosing. But at full retirement age, under the old rules, you could pick and choose. You could, in essence, have your cake and eat it too. You could defer, grow your own benefit, but receive a spousal payment in the meantime, sort of to help tide you over. A good deal. And I think Congress thought it was too good a deal. So in the bipartisan budget bill, they changed this. Now, under the passage of the bill, Congress said that bill was signed last November. If you were taking advantage of the claim some now, claim more later strategy, you were fine. You were grandfathered in. They didn't pull money away from people. But they also allowed, actually, a longer phase-out period. Because what the budget bill says is, if you were born January 1st, 1954 or earlier, translate, as long as you were over the age of 62 at the end of calendar year 2015, then at your full retirement age, you will still have the option of picking and choosing, if you will. You will still have the option at full retirement age of taking 50% of your spouse's full retirement age amount and deferring collection of your own. Again, your spouse has to be collecting, you have to be at full retirement age, and you have to have been 62 years of age or older at the end of last year. But with those three things in place, at full retirement age, it will still be an option whereby you can get something while you defer collecting your own. But for anyone born after January 1st, 1954, I'm sorry to say you are SOL. And you no longer have that option. What the new law says is no matter what age you're at, when you go to Social Security, inquire about spousal benefits, you're going to be deemed to be applying for both your own and a spousal benefit at the same time. You don't have the option at any age of picking and choosing. But again, if you were 62 or older at the end of last year, at your full retirement age, your spouse is collecting, you will still have the option of picking and choosing, if you will, deferring collection of your own, receiving something in the meantime. So something to keep in mind. I want to quickly touch on taxation of benefits. Oh, one quick reminder. Nothing in this change in the bill, though, impacts what I had talked about earlier in terms of survivors, widows and widowers, having the option of taking, say, a reduced survivor benefit at age 60 or whatever, switching to their own full unreduced retirement benefit at full retirement age or vice versa. Change in the law pertains only to spousal benefits, doesn't change survivor benefits. Just a quick reminder about taxation of benefits. Prior to 1983, benefits completely tax-free. That year, Congress changed the IRS code, said if you're a higher income Social Security beneficiary, you'd be required to pay federal income tax on up to 50% of the Social Security payments that you had received in the prior year. Get treated as ordinary income, taxed at whatever marginal tax rate you were under. That first year, only about 10% of all Social Security beneficiaries found themselves having to pay federal income tax on a portion of their benefits. But what Congress didn't do was index those thresholds. So here we are, more than 30 years later, still need to be aware the old threshold of $25,000 in income for a single tax filer, $32,000 for a couple filing jointly are still in place. So if you find yourself couple filing jointly with more than $32,000 in income, couple filing single return above 25, you're now going to be at the point though where you may have to pay federal income tax on up to 85% of the Social Security benefit payments that you had received in the prior year. 15%, always tax-free, but up to 85% could be treated as ordinary income taxed at whatever marginal tax rate you fall under. These days, because the thresholds haven't been indexed, about half of all Social Security beneficiaries do find themselves paying federal income tax on a portion of their benefits. My wish for everybody in this room is that you pay federal income tax on your Social Security benefits. Why? Because if you're a single tax filer, I want you to have more than $25,000 in income in retirement. If you're a couple filing jointly, for God's sakes, you ought to have more than $32,000. You ought to be aspiring to pay federal income. That's not going anywhere either. Just something you need to plan for. At the end of the year, Social Security sends you a 1099 form. Use that in filing your tax return. People ask, does Social Security automatically withhold a portion of my benefits every month? Send it off the IRS? No, they don't do it automatically. But if you'd like to have it done at your request, you fill out a W-4 form, and Social Security will do that for you. Taxation of benefits, just something you need to plan for. All right, like Lady Godiva, I must come to my close. Oh, come on! That's a funny line. That's getting snorts and guffaws up and down the East Coast. Jeez, what is it, those teriyaki beef sticks? I've got your... Quick reminder, I'll take some questions. I always like to end where I started, though. As you make this transition to retirement, vitally important to recognize the Social Security program designed to provide you that base, that foundation of income protection. You can count on being there, but it's the base of income protection. You've got to take steps to supplement. Work with these handsome amigos here to find ways you can move from what Social Security provides to where you need and want to be for that comfortable retirement. The sooner you do that, more likely you are to have that retirement that we all hope to enjoy. So the question is, do you pay state taxes on your Social Security benefits? The answer is it depends. Depends what state you live in. Here in Massachusetts, Social Security benefits are not subject to state income tax. You live in the state of Rhode Island, though, Social Security benefits are subject to state income tax in Rhode Island. Varies from state to state. It's only about a handful of states where they are. The vast majority are not, but it does depend on where you stand.
Definitely take your benefits by age 70, or you're just going to lose.
So the question is, should you definitely take your benefits by age 70? There's really no reason to wait beyond age 70, because you're absolutely right. There's no additional increase and you're losing out on money. Absolutely. So basically, in terms of visualizing, the earliest you can start to collect is age 62. Doesn't make any sense to wait beyond age 70, because no additional bump by waiting past age 70. So in terms of scoping it out, just figure that's a continuum. What point along that line makes the most sense for you? Recognizing you start right at your full retirement age, you get 100%. You start to take it before full retirement age, you get less. You wait past full retirement age, you get more.
Modified adjusted gross income, does that include Social Security? It does not include Social Security.
So the question is, what does this modified adjusted gross income term, what does it encompass? It encompasses three things. It's your adjusted gross income from the bottom of your 1040 form, all right? Then you have to add back in any tax-free interest that you had been able to exclude from your federal tax return. And then the third thing you add in is 50% of your Social Security benefits. So your adjusted gross income, tax-free interest, 50% of your Social Security benefits, add those three things up. If they come out to under $25,000 as a single tax filer, then no part of your benefits are subject to tax. You're paying tax only on your adjusted gross income. Above that, though, same way with a couple above 32, then up to 85% of the benefits you receive could be subject to tax. Thanks, everybody.